So I've had San Quentin, my 10-foot long American cichlid tank, up for about a month now. And Alcatraz, my 8-foot long African cichlid tank, I've had that up for about 2.5 years. So I think it's time we compare the two. I'll talk about what I like about each and what I don't like. Here we go. There are a lot of differences between these two tanks, and I'll be talking about the major ones in this video. And stick around to the end because I'll also be comparing the stocking of each tank, and then what's my overall enjoyment of each one, and if I could only keep one, which one would it be? But let's kick it off with the tanks themselves. So this one over here is a 240-gallon acrylic tank from Fish Tanks Direct, and this one over here is a 435-gallon glass tank from Custom Aquariums. When I bought Alcatraz, I was overjoyed I was able to get a tank this big for my inmates of the old 75-gallon African cichlid glass aquarium I had. I enjoyed the tank, but it was way too small for most of those fish in my opinion. As I said, I bought this tank through Fish Tanks Direct. They had a few different brand options for a 240, and I went with Tsunami, which is like their own brand. I felt that Tsunami and Clear for Life were excellent builds. You probably couldn't tell unless I put a standard glass tank right next to it, but acrylic is extremely clear. It's like there's no glass at all, you're just looking directly into the water. So those of you who are crazy about crystal clear water, this might be a good option for you. Standard glass tanks have iron in them, which gives the panels a greenish hue, which can alter the clarity of the tank and make it darker. And this gets worse as the panels get thicker and thicker on the larger tanks. So that was a selling point for me. If you don't like the look of silicone in the corners of your tanks, then you'll also love that with acrylic you only see the panels butting up with each other. Something that you might think is cool is that it has no trim around the top and bottom, which could make you think that it's a rimless tank. I actually prefer to have the border at least around the top to hide the water line, but this hasn't really been a problem. One benefit of acrylic is that it weighs a lot less than a glass tank. When you get into the larger tanks, it can be a huge difference, several hundred pounds. So if you're weak and you have a bunch of weak friends and you want a big tank, you might go with acrylic just so you can get the thing into your house. The top of the tank is attached to the sides, so there's no removing it, but it has two large cutouts for adding decor, doing water changes, feeding, and whatever else you need to do. The openings toward the back for filters, wave makers, and heaters are permanent, and they're the only ones you'll get. So if you find that they're in the wrong place, then you'd better adjust to it because there's no moving them. There really isn't much that I don't like about the aquarium itself. Oh, except for one thing
that I hate more than anything in the entire world.
I researched how to keep acrylic from scratching because I knew it scratches super easily. And it does. I mean, it really does. Oh, and one more time. It really does scratch way too f***ing easily. I do have a video on how to minimize the amount of scratches you're gonna get with your acrylic tank, but no matter what you do, and no matter how careful you are, you're still gonna end up with scratches. They'll just pop up out of nowhere. I found things you can use to clean the panels that don't scratch it much, but here's what they don't usually tell you. Anything on God's green earth will scratch the hell out of acrylic if you press hard enough. The trick is in learning how hard you can press. It doesn't even really matter now, I suppose, if it gets another scratch. I mean, just look at all of them on the inside of the front panel. They're everywhere. But the good news is that it doesn't bother me if I don't look at it or think about it. Oh, stop thinking about it, Dave.
Subscribe or someone dies. Ding ding.
Now on to San Quentin, my Custom Aquariums 10-foot tank. I decided that I'd rather risk something hard striking the glass panels and possibly dumping 435 gallons of water on my floor rather than deal with those scratches I was talking about. So while I break out in a sweat pretty much every time I clean Alcatraz because I'm afraid of putting a scratch on it, with San Quentin, I really don't have to worry too much about that. I can just clean it like I would normally clean glass, and I can even use a razor on the inside without worrying too much about putting scratches on it. The one thing though is you want to make sure you don't get any rocks or pebbles stuck between whatever you're using and the glass, because that will scratch it. This is really a great tank. Remember I was talking about the lack of visible silicone on Alcatraz? Well, not so much on this bad boy, but I kind of like the way this looks. You can get clear silicone, but I actually chose black. I like seeing it. Looks classy to me for some reason. If you get clear silicone, it can discolor eventually anyway, and who wants that? This aquarium has trim around the top and the bottom, and like I said, I do like that to hide the water line. And in my opinion, the trim looks classier than the same color trim you find on lower end tanks like Aquarium. It looks heavy duty. Reinforced corners too. Oh, and check this out. I have low iron glass, so its clarity is comparable to the acrylic. You pay extra for it though. The acrylic had a permanently attached top, but this is wide open except for the high quality removable glass lids. And get this, these braces are removable. You just unscrew these things and they come right off. So if you need to get something in here that's huge, like a background from Aquadecor, then you can do that pretty easily. Except, and here's the catch, you have to make sure that there's no water in the tank when you do it, or bad things will happen. And you probably won't even be able to reattach the bracing with water in the tank anyway. Still, it's great and unusual to have that option with a glass tank. Like Alcatraz, there really isn't much that I don't like about this tank itself, except for one thing. This son of a bitch is heavy. This one weighs in at about 700 pounds, and it took 5 decently strong guys to move it from the driveway to the inside the house. And one of us, an Iron Man no less, almost slipped and got crushed under its weight, getting off the trailer in the driveway. Super scary. Other than that though, there really isn't anything I don't love about this tank from Custom Aquariums. And if you're wondering, the prices as you get up to this size of tank is pretty comparable between acrylic and glass. Acrylic might be a little bit less expensive depending on where you order from. I get a lot of comments about Alcatraz saying that I need to scape that tank. But if you have peacocks and haps or you know anything about them, then you really know that that's not too much of an option. I mean, it's kind of a limited scope of what you can put in there. But with San Quentin and the American cichlids, it really opens the door for you to be a lot more creative with your scape. When I scaped my 180 with these standing logs from Aquadecor and this branch I found down by the river, I kind of got a taste for it. It's nice to have options with how you want your tank to look. So with San Quentin and my American cichlids, I went all out. But not with plants, of course. One thing about San Quentin and American tanks is, a lot like Africans, these fish love to eat plants. And so if you put plants in your tank, there's a good chance, even if you use something like Anubias or Java fern, there's a good chance that they're going to become dinner. You also have to realize I've never met a plant I haven't killed or I'm in the process of killing. I just don't have what it takes. Judge me all you want. It took me about a month to finalize my choice for the right decor for this tank through Aquadecor. I finally settled on this 8-foot branch. It's in a set that came with lots of fake rocks. Some of the rocks in here are also real though, and fake leaves. And if you saw my Aquadecor install video, then you know that even though I loved everything, these leaves are way above and beyond what I expected. They look completely authentic. I used about 700 pounds of sand I bought from a place called Clean Blast in Tacoma. Just like $15 for a 50-pound bag, if you can believe that. I also have another edition coming from Aquadecor that should be here in about a week or so that's going to transform this into something even better. So yeah, I mean, I think this scape looks great. It's exactly what I was looking for and how I envisioned it. But what do you think about it? Is it great? Does it suck? Let me know. Alcatraz is a different story. Because African cichlids are such fast and active swimmers who need tons of open swimming space, I don't want to add too much decor in here. It might look great, but the fish won't be as happy and they could wind up injuring themselves. If I had the same decor from San Quentin in this tank, they'd all have eye damage like this guy. He's my evil tank boss, but he's got some challenges imposing his will on the other guys because he can only see out of one eye. He's a first-class a-hole, but he's a bit ineffective due to his visual limitation. So I have to keep the decor pretty simple in here. In fact, what you're looking at is really too much right now. These are all fake rocks from Aquadecor, and I love the way they look. They're also hollow, so they don't take up a lot of water volume, which is a great bonus to help with the dilution of pollution. So just a few rocks and some pipes. And I get a lot of questions about what kind of sand I'm using and where I found those pipes. The sand is Carib Sea aragonite, and I bought the pipes from Petco. They were the only decor that I liked from Petco, and so of course they don't make them anymore. It's generally not a great idea to have pipes and other decor that peacocks and haps can claim as their own territory because they can go even crazier than they already are and kill anyone who looks at it. But I have these for Icarus, my lone Mbuna. They love caves and pipes, those Mbuna do. So far not a problem, so if you look at this tank and think it's boring because the decor is pretty minimal, well, that's just the way it has to be. But this tank is really about the fish. I mean, maybe their beauty is enough to draw your attention away from the limited decor and allow you to focus on just how cool they are. If you've been watching my channel for any length of time, then you know that I like to have crystal clear water in my tanks. And a big part of that is what filtration I'm using. So in Alcatraz, I have a completely different setup than what I'm using in San Quentin. So let's talk about the differences. When I bought Alcatraz, I was afraid of sumps. In case you don't know, sumps are basically like huge open canister filters that you place in the stand under your tank. There are really some great benefits to having a sump, but there are some drawbacks too, and I'll get to those in a minute. But for now, this 240-gallon aquarium has 3 Fluval FX6 filters on it, and they're doing a fine job. One thing I really like about this setup is that these filters are so quiet, bro. I mean, just about silent, no trickling water that you get from sumps. These particular filters are pretty inexpensive, over $300 each unless you get them on sale,
And for me, it's worth it though. I already worry about my tanks without having to worry as much about the filters breaking down or leaking. These are good quality filters, so it eases my mind. I take good care of them to help minimize any issues that might come up, and because I have only canister filters, some of my equipment that could be hidden in a sump needs to be inside the tank. So as you can see, my heaters and the heater controller probes, they're all in the tank. Not ideal, but I can live with that. I have this 80-gallon seamless sump from Custom Aquariums filtering the water in San Quentin. And when I bought this tank, I was still afraid of setting up sumps. Still am actually. But now that I've done it, it's not my #1 fear anymore. Drowning on a submarine is back at #1. That extra water volume you get with a sump is great for dilution. But here's something you need to know.
A lot of people have concerns about sumps because of the noise level. Like with Alcatraz, I have the 3 canisters on it and they're almost completely silent. I never even noticed that they're on. But with San Quentin, it's a different story. Now, we had a water feature put in just outside our front door not too long ago, and when you open the door, it sounds like it's pouring down rain because of all the water movement. But when you come in the house and stand by San Quentin, it sounds kind of like you're standing right next to that water feature still, which I'm still dialing this thing in, so it could get more quiet as I fix things and make some adjustments. But it sounds like there's a huge movement of water, and then also it kind of sounds like there's a lawnmower running.
That lawnmower sound is coming from the pumps. So the pumps make a little noise, especially if they're touching anything at all, and they are touching things. They're sitting on foam, but there's still vibrations making noise through that. Plus, if the hose touches any part of the sump, which it does, that makes some noise. I'm switching these 2 pumps out to some Cichlid 7.0 sumps, which should be pretty quiet based on the reviews I'm seeing, so that'll help. But the sump will always be noisier than canister filters. So that's my least favorite thing about this setup. The noise isn't so bad that it makes me wish I didn't have a sump though, so that's something. The water volume is great, but it's also wonderful to be able to dump some unsightly things into this instead of inside my display tank. So my heaters and temperature controllers, they're all in here to keep the tank looking more authentically Amazonian. I think along with the added water volume and the ease of just being able to reach into the sump to grab whatever I need, like when I clean the sump, the ability to hide equipment is a huge plus. You can even grow plants down here if you add a light to help with nitrates, and you can even use some of the compartments for certain fish as penalty boxes or quarantines if someone's getting beat up in the tank. It's all in the same water system, so it works great for that. Same pH, same temperature, and everything. So all in all, I'd take the sump over the canisters, or better yet, have a sump and a canister. That's what I'll eventually do with this tank.
So now let's talk about my favorite part of the tanks. Let's compare the nut jobs that are living in them.
The inmates in Alcatraz are absolutely gorgeous. I mean, just look at all the variety of colors in here. Plus all the different patterns. Some are completely solid, others have 2 colors, some have more, and some have stripes. What's up, Zeke? Best fish who ever lived, right there. Their body shapes are usually quite similar. It's kind of a torpedo shape, but there's also some variety. These are all peacocks and haps except for the previously mentioned Icarus, my yellow lab, and Buna. As an entire species, I really don't think you can find more beautiful fish overall than you can with African cichlids. Maybe bettas, but these are gorgeous fish, and that's why I think most of us are crazy enough to keep them. San Quentin houses some smaller American cichlids who still have to color up, but they will color up. And some of them, like the Jack Dempsey, are going to color up so much that they'll actually put the Africans to shame. However, I think most of the Americans will fall in behind the Africans when it comes to pure physical beauty. You might think otherwise, so let me know if you think I'm off base there.
So while the appearance in the fish in my 2 tanks is quite a bit different, I've also found that the personalities between the 2 tanks is like night and day.
African cichlids are complete nut jobs. You've heard me say that before, and it's not going to change. They hate everyone and generally would like to be the only one to send all the other fish to fish heaven. So it's tricky keeping them, but we have our ways, don't we? Lots of tricks we have up our sleeve as African cichlid keepers. They're very interactive fish who follow you around the room, especially when it's supper time, and to them, it's always supper time. I keep their food in the fridge, and they can look and see the fridge from this end of the tank, so guess where they hang out all the time? Gluttonous bastards. As I said, they're very active, fast-moving fish who love to swim. When no one's in the kitchen, they usually let up a little bit on hovering over in one corner, and they get to spread out. They have a lot more personality than your normal, sane fish like you have in community tanks. American cichlids are quite a bit different. They generally move like they're in no hurry to get anywhere, Unless, of course, someone needs chasing. As I said, African cichlids are aggressive. Well, there are two different categories of American cichlids, South American and Central American. Maybe more actually, like those from Haiti, like the Black Nasty, but I'm just talking about these two for now. The South Americans tend to be less aggressive than the Africans, overall. The Central Americans, on the other hand, watch out for these guys. They can get terrifyingly aggressive. We're talking like Hannibal Lecter type stuff here. Way worse than Africans. The wolf cichlid, for instance. This fish pretty much needs to be by himself forever and ever, because he'll destroy anyone else except a female wolf cichlid, so they can have mommy and daddy time together. But here's the cool thing about these fish, both from what I've heard from you and then also from my own limited experience. Lots of these larger American cichlids get amazing puppy dog-like personalities. You get a touch of this with Africans, but these are different. The Oscar fish has a really big reputation as being very personal with you, and even mine, though he's still a little guy, he's always right there in front of the glass just following me around, much more than anyone else does. Not afraid at all. And here's a surprise for you. Oh, remember Buck, my true parrotfish? He's a South American cichlid. He's not the weird-looking parrotfish that you get with the freaky tiny mouth. I'm not sure why anybody even likes those, actually. Sorry if you do. Well, I had to get Buck out of his small quarantine tank, and I didn't really know where to put him. So I've temporarily placed him in my African cichlid grow-out tank. Now hold on, I know what you're saying. This is a huge mistake mixing these fish, but here's the thing. I have reasons for this, and I'm not blind to the pH differences and all that. I'll be talking about that and why I did it in an upcoming video. He'll be moving to San Quentin once all those inmates grow to a non-snack size for him, which might be a bit because he keeps growing too, of course. So yeah, the beauty prize may go to the Africans, but I think the personality prize goes to these Americans, even with their extreme nasty streak that some of them have.
So the question of the day is, if I could only keep one of these tanks, which one would it be? Alcatraz I have a lot of history with. I have 2.5 years with this tank, and I love the inmates. However, with San Quentin, when I look or even think about this tank, which is pretty much all the time, I just love the possibilities of where this tank is going to take me. I love the fish, I love the decor, I love the tank itself. Now, if these were two ships sailing the vast ocean together, which one would I be on? Well, I'd be on San Quentin, no doubt. But the more important question is, which one would you be on? Let me know in the comments. All right, well, until next time, that's a wrap.